Hello, welcome to Tucson Comic-Con 2022. We are so excited to have you here at our panel for the most excellent 80s movies podcast. Cheer as if each of you is 10 people. Yes! As you can hear, there are 200 people in the room with us. And we are so excited to be here. So normally we jump right in and do the intro to the movie, but since we are live and in front of actual humans, we'll explain a little bit at the beginning. So what we try to do on the most excellent 80s movies podcast is revisit the movies from the 80s that we either loved or may have completely missed us and passed us by with these our grown-up eyes, trying to sort of evaluate, do they hold up? Do we still love them? Is there some kind of magic that makes them great even though they're bad? Or what do we think of these movies now? And we wanted to pick an especially comic-y, although we haven't done a lot of, in our history, we haven't done a lot of comic book-based
No, we haven't done Batman.
We haven't done 1989
There's
Batman.
not a lot of 80s. We haven't done Dick Tracy. Does that count?
We haven't done Dick Tracy. We haven't done any Supermans at all. So this is really our first big swing at a comic book movie. I'm wobbling my hand as if it's not quite true, and it's not quite true. Anything to say before we start? It went to sleep. Yes, here's what we will say. Nathan will say things.
I feel like this is one of the kind of movies that you'd want to watch at midnight, maybe on the cusp of falling asleep, so it's almost a bit of an abstract experience. That's my personal take. Or if you've been consuming libations or other things that help the experience. I would not say that this is a straightforward kind of superhero movie.
No? Okay. As soon as this happens, we'll do the official start of the podcast. From 1984. But we're going to officially start the podcast. Ready? Here's the theme song. Boop, 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 doo, 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 doo.
That's post-production.
Okay.
So.
Hello and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker, a comedian, and their fabulous guests look at the 80s movies we think we love or might have missed with these our grown-up eyes. And today we are watching Supergirl, a movie selection from 1984. So I am the comedian for this podcast. My name is Chrissy Lenz. I'm the director and performer at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona. Very excited to be all the way down here in Tucson with you guys. And with me, as always, is filmmaker Nathan Blackwell.
Hi, everyone. I'm a local Phoenix-based filmmaker. I do web series, short films, corporate video, commercials, real estate videos too, apparently.
You do, yes.
You know, sometimes you just got to pay the bills.
With drones and fancy things like that.
And then, of course, with us is the guy who I conned into giving me a ride to Tucson, my driver.
Hey, it's me, Jerry Washburn.
Lucky for us, is also a filmmaker. Boy, you really lucked out.
I don't think he's literally made one film.
I've shot a lot of B-roll that you're supposed to edit into a film.
Yeah, that works for me. And you're a returning guest.
Yeah. Former Dune expert. He was on our David Lynch Dune episode.
Unfortunately, I did not bring the coloring books for Supergirl or play any of the video games or read 6 novels to prepare for this.
But
today.
you did that work for Dune, and that's the important thing. Yes. So we are going to talk through the 1984 comic book movie Supergirl, which has an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes. So if you're wondering, should I go home and watch it after this? The answer is probably no. But we are going to give you as much of a walkthrough as we can as we try to examine, like, does it really hold up? Now, and we usually talk about, like, how does this movie hold up for us? And I was chatting a bit with the audience. For me, this movie was a big deal in 1984. Little tiny baby Chrissy was like, Superman, but for me. She has pretty hair. And I was obsessed with this movie. And did you see it when you were a kid? Did you love it, Nathan?
You know what? I loved the first two Superman movies, like Superman 1 and 2, like the Richard Donner ones. But for some reason, part of it was also accessibility. It's not like we didn't have cable. We only had cable when I went to my grandpa's house. And so it was different. Like, you couldn't just like select this movie back in the 80s. But for some reason, both Superman 3 and Supergirl, like me as an 8-year-old or whatever, is like, no.
That is so we're opposites in every
and
way.
I think just like seeing the trailer for this and rewatching the trailer for Superman 3, I totally get why, even like as an 8-year-old, it's like, nah.
Superman 3 was my jam.
I've still never seen Superman 3.
Oh, it's so good. And what about for you, Jared?
My first time watching it was periodically this week.
Okay, great. Cool.
Fortunately, I had missed it up until this week.
Oh. So,
Fortunately, I had
friends
missed
in
it
the
up until
audience,
this week.
Raise your hand if you have seen it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And my son is raising his hand, even though you did not watch this with me.
I've seen it on VHS.
He didn't. He was like, no,
Accuse.
thank you, Mom. Yeah.
J'accuse.
Of those who have seen it, who remembers loving it, no hands. Okay, two hands.
We got,
two hands
there we
are
go.
giving us wibble wobble. Yes. Looking back as an adult, I can see that empirically this is not a good movie.
It's a movie with quotation marks.
Yes, it's a movie film, but
It's certainly a movie.
like from my eyes when I was watching it as a kid, none of it mattered. None of the reasons why mattered. None of the dialogue mattered. It was just like, there is Supergirl fly now. Supergirl, oh, cute boy, smooch. Okay. Faye Dunaway is doing big arms. And that's all that mattered. You could watch this movie in German and you would get from it the same amount of information. So we start inexplicably in...
Yeah. So
inner space?
Interspace? Yes. So this is about the time when, so this is what, 84. So this is not long after the sci-fi boom that kind of started with Star Wars, you know? And so then you had a lot of like, well, this is sci-fi. Let's make up some nonsense names and some nonsense cultures. And I felt like the what kind of started with Superman. There were a lot of like people who were respectful to the to kind of like the original property, but then as those people started to get pushed out the door, the producers, the Salkinds, who did the first two Superman movies, the third one, and then also Supergirl, there was less of a kind of a guiding hand of like, well, this is what the source material is. Let's just make up something sci-fi-y.
Yeah.
So this movie has a lot of that to where it's stuff that's not in any original material. They just kind of make up a couple of spacey things.
So Argo City, this is the first time anybody in the world has heard about Argo City.
Argo City.
And there's no exposition.
Which is in inner space, which is at the bottom of a lake. And what did we think? Wisconsin? Nebraska? Is that what we thought?
I just thought the portal from the inner space to our world was in the lake.
Oh, the portal is in the lake.
My assumption was that Argo City is where everybody on Krypton went to not die on Krypton.
Right. They basically, yeah.
I
so
thought
if
different. Hi everyone, this is what we look like.
My eyes.
Podcaster scurry.
Timer? No, they didn't uncouple the rooms.
Yep, from last night when we did
the costume contest.
Here, let me
Thank you, Kathy.
narrate for everybody
Live
at home.
podcast,
The lights
everyone.
are getting dimmer and brighter.
Well, what you can see is that like it's this weird, like it looks like a honeycomb, but it's all made out of white. Like
Right.
a lot of you seem like young people, but in the 80s we were like, oh, dream come true. Everything is made of bone and glass.
Yeah, kind of like Logan's Run-esque
Or
style.
Krull.
Yeah.
It looks like the end of Krull.
So they start off. So I think the whole idea of Argo City is that. So Krypton exploded, but how does he still have relatives? Because she knows that she's Clark Kent's. Like she knows Clark Kent's name.
She knows all about it. They are getting the newsletter.
Yeah. So they're getting the updates. He's sending letters home, I guess,
To Argo City at the
to
bottom
Argo
of a
City.
lake.
But I guess the idea of this Argo City is that it's like they couldn't like actually fly and escape from Krypton. Instead, they live in a pocket universe in inner space, not outer space, where just this one building exists. But they never say Kryptonians.
And they tell you that Peter O'Toole created this whole world with his magic wand
And his dodecahedron.
and his dodecahedron, which is like a little tiny ball of magical light. So if you take the little ball and you take the magic wand and you like wave it around in the air,
You can make a tree.
you make a tree. Or so there's so much. We could like talk for a whole hour about just the beginning of this scene, because he's like, I'm going to make a tree. What's a tree? It's something on Earth. Okay, that's not what it looks like, Peter O'Toole. Sorry. You know so much about Clark Kent, but apparently he didn't send you a picture of a tree. And they're just like there. So he apparently is like a mentor of sorts to Kara, who is our Supergirl, who seems like she's supposed to be about 10. This is being played by an adult woman, but she seems like she's supposed to be like a child.
Yeah,
right?
Who wants to play, who is innocent and wants to make drawings. And
you can kind of see in this very top picture, she's like sitting with her legs like out playing with a little bug that she made, and she just seems like a child. But the bug flies out. Apparently that's all you need to destroy Argo City.
Yeah, she makes a giant dragonfly.
And it flies out, and
And
after
it pops Argo City.
we meet Mia Farrow, who it's just dialogue, things that make no sense and have no relevance to this movie. Bippity boppity boo, out she goes, chasing the Omegahedron into the real world. Because they will die without it, is what we learn. Is that like she made it fly away, and now they're on a clock. They're all gonna die unless she rescues it. So fun fact, we all saw in the trailer the part where she shoots out of the lake. That was a piece of cardboard. It was a piece of cardboard that they yanked out of a lake. Filmmaking, right, Nathan?
Filmmaking.
That's how it's done. And then the first thing she does, so she gets to Earth, and she's like, oh, I know what I need to do to find this Omegahedron, which I dropped somewhere.
Right.
Go to high school.
So basically, it's like yeah. She immediately enrolls into high school.
Which she knows how to do.
Right.
She goes to the principal's office. She writes a fake transcript with her fast superpowers.
She already has like a good idea of what template she wants to use for
her resume.
For her resume.
And she's like, let me
But she
into
hadn't
the
thought of a
school.
name yet.
Yes, tell us about the name, Jared.
This is one of my 7 notes.
Okay.
It is ellipses, Robert ellipses, E ellipses, question mark. Because there's a giant picture of Robert E. Lee inside the boarding school, and she's like, yeah, my name's Linda Lee. And of course she's named after Robert E. Lee, because why not?
Ooh. So she goes to this high school. She makes a friend. Like she plays field hockey. She thwarts a bully's attempt to scald her alive with the hot shower water.
Mm-hmm.
Seemingly having forgotten that like back home her mom and dad are like gasping for air.
Yeah, she to sum it up, because the movie takes so many twists and turns that kind of seem maybe it made sense at the time. It's like, okay, now let's add a scene in the diner. Okay, now there's a runaway tractor. The overall plot of the movie is so the secret pocket city in a pocket universe, like it exists outside of time or space or whatever. They basically lose like the power gem that runs the whole city, and
Yeah.
it shoots out the window, and she has to go find it. And this movie posits, what if like the ultimate power, an Infinity Stone, landed in the hands of a fortune teller astrologist? And what would happen then?
What if it
Who,
landed
who
in
lives
the
in a
hands of
fun house?
little
Right.
Faye Dunaway?
Right. If Faye Dunaway is not a criminal mastermind. I think they kind of did a bit of a Gene Hackman to where it's like, let's have like the big name actor who's hard up for money to be in the movie. Let it kind of lend it some credibility. But she's not a criminal mastermind. She basically is like, she looks like my choir teacher, and she kind of like, is effectively like an astrologer / hustler of like getting men to pay for things for her. And so what if she had the ultimate power? She basically is just doing really petty things that kind of gratify her in that moment. And there's a bit of a, she's also a quote witch who has never been able to do spells.
Now, Nathan, I'm sorry, but
Until now.
as the person who loved this movie, I'm going to need you to put a little bit of respect on that name. All right, okay? She is a witch who lives in a busted amusement park.
Right.
Who is hot? Who wears caftans? Who has jewelry for days, and lives with like her friend, Brenda Vaccaro, also an Oscar winner.
And throws really classy parties.
And she throws really classy parties. Jared, how did you feel about Faye Dunaway as a character? Were you like, I want to be her?
I was confused.
Okay.
And you know how like in comic book movies you've got the villain who's like taken over the amusement park. Like they actually have that amusement park legitimately, because they're talking about the water bill. They're talking about the about paying the rent or the mortgage.
rent.
Yeah, so
Yes.
they legitimately chose that.
Which doesn't
facility.
make any sense, right? Like, if you're going to live in an abandoned amusement park, it's because your family fell to ruins, right? It's because
You have a
you're,
Scooby-Doo
it.
plot.
you're squatting there. No, these people were with a realtor, and they said, look no further. We'll take it.
This is the one for me.
But she rides on the cart in the haunted house to breakfast. Come on. Who doesn't want to live that life? She's like riding through the haunted house, and like she gives Selena the mail, and then like off they go again. So that's where the Omegahedron ended up. She's having a picnic with her boyfriend, Nigel. They're talking about how they are witches and they know spells. And then also there's a tiger rug at the picnic, because in the 80s we knew how to live. And you brought a tiger rug to your picnic. The Omegahedron falls, and she's like, oh, I immediately recognize this thing as like a source of otherworldly power.
Yeah, and I feel
dump
like
you.
Peter Cook was also kind of like how they had Ned Beatty in the
Yes.
other ones, to where so Peter Cook is
Peter Cook is her boyfriend.
a famous British comedian.
Super famous.
Yeah,
I have none pictures of him.
but you would recognize him from The Princess Bride as the guy who officiates the wedding.
Yes,
Yeah.
marriage. And also from Willy Wonka, and he's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So let's say you need 2 chocolate bars.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
He's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He's a famous guy. So
We'll have the quiz on Monday
but she's
before we've
immediately
learned
like,
anything.
I recognize what this is. I dump you. I'm going to go be a famous witch. And then we do get a shot of him later walking to the car carrying his box of picnic supplies. And the tiger rug is neatly folded and set on top. And I was like, oh, thank God. I was so worried. Meanwhile, she's in high school. And she meets... Jared, tell us about like Lucy Lane's cousin of the Who.
Wait, I thought was the rapey guys, was that before high school or after high school?
Oh, right.
I was gonna just skip
Skip
right over
over
that.
Well, that's 'cause
That was the first first people that Supergirl meets in several different situations are literally like the worst human beings you've ever seen in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're super rapey, they're super like, just like all jerk faces, and the two rapey truck drivers.
Very first thing, she lands on Earth. But she shoots out of the lake in a Superman costume, but with a skirt, and she's like, "Very well, I am Supergirl. I will go now." And she meets these two horrible truckers who want to do horrible things. She's beating them up with superpower. So the purpose of this in the movie is to show us, the viewer, like, oh, okay, she's a super person, but what does she have? Does she have laser eyes? Check. Does she have super breath?
Definitely.
Yes, she does. Can she do a really hard kick to someone's chest and send them flying through a wall? Yes. We learn all of that because she beats up these two truckers who are like literally trying to assault her. And that's it. But they keep attacking her. They're just regular men.
Yeah. And they immediately recognize her as someone who is dressed exactly like Superman. So Superman exists. His powers are known.
Superman.
And so when the first display of her powers, like when she flies in the air and like kicks someone, there's no like, oh wait, Superman, bullets bounce off of him. Let's keep attacking this girl.
Yeah, I'll pull out a knife so that I can more effectively sexually harass this teenage girl.
And they just keep going. And each time they ask, like, well, all right, we got a feisty one here. It's like, she just shot you with laser eyes.
And
Move along.
This is also where I got the idea for my spin-off podcast, the worst excellent 80s product placement podcast, because one of the rapey guys has a giant A&W logo on his shirt.
Oh no.
I'm like, did A&W, because A&W shows up a lot in the movie. I'm like, I wonder how much A&W paid for this and how they felt about
him,
that particular product.
Right.
placement.
Yeah, there was at least 3 A&W root beer logos throughout the movie. But the first time we see it is on the shirt of the super rapey truck driver.
Terrible person.
It's like Supergirl versus A&W man.
It is. Well, and but here's the problem. Like, there's so much to unpack in this movie, but we've only got 20 minutes left, you guys, and we haven't even even fought our first major battle. So she goes to high school. She's doing her thing. Eventually, Selena, who has realized she has all these powers, to make Ellis from Die Hard fall in love with her. So she's like, you know how it is when you're a villain and you're like, I just want to take over the world, but I don't know how or why or what the plan is going to be. She decides that if she can make every person on Earth fall in love with her, then she will have them in her thrall. And then, step 3 is profit. So Ellis...
Yeah, make no mistake, this movie is super horny. Like everyone is like trying to like get the dude to hook up with the dude or to find a cute boy.
But the boy that they do find is just
he's a landscaper.
A handyman. He's a handsome handyman who they see on the side of the road. And they're like, you know how it is. You're driving along and you're just like, ooh, a hot person. Now you're mine.
Yeah, both the villainesses are like full on the prowl.
Oh, yes. And that's what I love about them, Nathan. They're clearly in a relationship with each other, but they're looking for a third for their throuple. Yeah,
but it's just like so emotionally confusing for me that everyone is after like Ellis, the slimiest person in Die Hard. It's a next level of amusement.
And much like 16 Candles, there's nothing appealing about him as a person. Like, he has no skills or talents aside from like being a handsome handyman, who I just in my notes kept calling him the hand because he's the handsome handy.
Right.
So she does a spell to make him fall in love with her. He's trapped in the bed, as we saw, and unfortunately, the spell means that when he wakes up, he's going to fall in love with the first person that he sees. He escapes. He wanders aimlessly through this town.
Through an entire town full of people staring at him, but his eyes are averted the whole time.
Yeah, he's got blurry eyes looking down. He stumbles through the whole town. Now, meanwhile, Jimmy Olsen is with Lois Lane's sister and Superman's cousin in a diner watching this man wander through the streets. And do you remember what he says, Jared?
Jimmy Olsen?
Yeah.
I do not.
He says that guy's probably just a drunk.
Leave him be.
Leave him be. Let's drink shakes.
Yeah, that's a solid attitude to take.
Uh-huh. But so Witch Lady gets mad. She sends the bulldozer after him, as we saw. And, of course, the first person he sees is who?
Supergirl.
Supergirl, in disguise as
Robert E. Lee.
This is Robert E. Lee. But this is her first big battle. She's like in her costume. She doesn't do a very good job because she effectively grabs the bulldozer and drives it through the town. She takes the fronts off of buildings where we see inside the people who are just at the counter transacting like, who? She destroys the whole town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But I guess
It's
Superman
almost kind
does
of
that
like a
too.
Roger Moore sequence to where all the townspeople are doing like double takes and trying to figure out what's going on.
Lois Lane's sister climbs into the tractor,
Oh, that's
doesn't
right.
realize there's brakes, and then immediately gets knocked out because that's how tractors work, is you just fall asleep as soon as you sit down in the driver's seat.
And she flies away to a tropical island with Ellis, and I think that's just we're calling him right now. We're just calling him Ellis. In the like inside of the tractor, he falls in love with her. Selena is like, "Oh drat, that was the one hot guy in this town. Now it's war."
Mm-hmm.
And now it's war. So Ellis falls in love with Supergirl, and there's no one who made this movie is thinking, wait,
She's a child.
isn't she in high school?
She just started high school.
She did. And no one's like, wait.
Her age throughout the whole thing is very ambiguous because, I mean, when she's in Argo City, like you said, she acts like she is a preteen. Like,
Yeah.
she acts like a little kid.
Yes, she does. But then this adult man is in love with her, and this adult woman has like marked her as an equal who has power the Dark Lord knows not. I don't know. Am I getting mixed up? Okay. So Selena is like, I'm going to keep being as mean as possible. She's got the Omegahedron.
And a wand made of pure evil.
Yeah. So, but what's all she wants to do essentially, the main bad guy in this movie, all she wants to do is like be in charge of the world. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even remember what happens next at this point. And I have 10 pages of notes. They do have a really fun battle at the abandoned amusement park, which is just, it's really great. And that, like, for all of the terribleness of this movie, that part is worth watching.
Right. Yeah, this is kind of like 80s witchcraft versus Superman powers.
Mm-hmm. So the witch, she does decide that she is going to trick the man into loving her, banish Supergirl to the Phantom Zone, and be in charge of the world, which just means that she lives on top of a mountain in this town, and she drives around in a fancy car, being like,
With a motorcycle
them!
escort.
Seize them!
And immediately, I don't know where they came from, but she then has kind of an army of secret police, like men in just black uniforms, who either she's like hypnotized or made a very reasonable, like, salary for. But these men are basically rounding up. Apparently, there's no police.
Right.
Because she's just rounding up the citizens and people are protesting with signs.
But only 4 people are protesting with signs. So those
Right.
are Supergirl's roommate, Jimmy Olsen, her math teacher, who is the evil boyfriend. There were 3. I correct myself. There were 3. But, like, that's what I'm saying is, like, in the 80s, if you were a bad guy, you don't want to deal with infrastructure. Am I right? Like, you don't want to have to, like, decide you don't want to hire people for your secret police. You just you want what they had, right?
Yeah,
To
you
live in
hire an
abandoned
HR person for
amusement
that.
park. Like, they had it all is a real
Yeah, so
lesson of
one-
this movie.
One of the problems of this movie is that it basically, the villain has no significant, like, they didn't really have much ambition to do anything
Other than to just wear fabulous caftans.
until they kind of got the magical MacGuffin device
Yeah.
that gave them ultimate power, and then they kind of like are just impulsively doing things throughout the movie. There's never like a main plot
Okay.
per
but
se.
We have to talk about Faye Dunaway in this movie because she, as you can see, she has this gorgeous red. Do we think that's her hair? It's probably a wig. And she just like every line she delivers is like with ultimate raised eyebrow and like a bar of light that's just across her eyes. And she's like, well, you've never heard of me, sweetheart. She's just like being so villainous and doing big arms, the power of shadow. Be mean to teenagers. Ah, ha, 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 ha. It's a dream. It's a dream role for an actress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is totally one of those kind of scenery chewing roles that I'm sure they had to pay her a fortune to do. Because just like Gene Hackman, I get a feeling like he really enjoyed doing it, but he wouldn't give them more than 2 takes and probably showed up an hour late.
Yeah. So yes. Famously, Faye Dunaway was very late to the set of this movie. She was the most famous person at the time. Everybody hated her and did not want to be in this movie. But she gets to say things like when someone's like, "You're playing with fire, Selena," and she just gets to go because I have the matches. So it's very appealing. But so Supergirl, Nathan, I'm so excited to talk to you and Jared about this part. Goes to the Phantom Realm where she finds
Peter O'Toole.
quicksand.
Oh.
Quicksand, green quicksand.
Uh-huh.
Now we all know that in the 1980s we were made to be frightened of quicksand. Young people, how afraid of you on a scale of 1 to 10 are you of quicksand?
It's okay.
11.
We got a 1 and an 11.
Yeah. So she falls into this quicksand, and she's like, it's like the bog of sadness from
Never-ending story.
Thank you. And she gets out and finds Peter O'Toole. What do we think of the Phantom Zone, you guys? How bad did
Well,
it seem?
the first thing he says is squirt, squirt, squirt. That's his line.
He's got a squirt. He's got this green goo in a Windex bottle that he's offering.
Squirt.
And he offers her a squirt. But anyway, he's known how to get out of the... He sent himself to the Phantom Zone in the very beginning. Could not wait to get to the Phantom Zone.
Well, as self-punishment for losing the gem.
Right.
Being
But
careless.
like, so this is what I felt like it was like. Did you guys ever have like a really nice watch that you loved and wanted to keep, but then the battery died? And you don't want to have to go to Radio Shack to get a new, very specific battery for that watch? That's like Argo City. And there's only one battery that works.
Uh-huh.
And now Faye Dunaway's got it.
Uh-huh. It's true. So at this point, maybe a week has passed since she left Argo City, which has not had the power source. So have they all been suffocating at this point? Because basically there's a big hole with
I assumed
air.
that her parents were very much dead. And she's just like, oh, well,
we never
we're in the Phantom Zone
cut
now.
back to it once she leaves of like them being concerned or like reminding us of the stakes. This is basically a stakeless movie.
It is until the very last second when she's like, so after they fight their way back out of the Phantom Zone, which did you guys know? You guys know a lot about Superman. Did you know you could just crawl out of the Phantom Realm?
I suspected it, but I never had proof until now.
Okay.
I thought the Phantom Zone was a 2-dimensional like mirror that you were stuck in.
I
Yeah.
thought that too. I definitely thought that, and that you finally got to use all that
you got to
mime
see
work.
the Phantom Zone in Superman 2.
Okay, and
where
I'm rushing us because we have 10 minutes left,
Yes.
you guys.
Okay.
But
We
so
gotta
they
get to
climb
my
out. It's like
deep
that
cut
scene in
recommendation.
Batman, you know, The Dark Knight Rises, where he's like climbing out, or it's exactly like the scene in Inside Out, where Bing Bong and Joy have to get out of the Forgotten Realm.
Bing Bong.
And they get out through the power of song. It's exactly like that scene. They escape. Big fight. All of a sudden, Supergirl knows exactly what's up. She saves the day. She gets the Omegahedron. She sends them to the Phantom Zone, doesn't she? Or what happens to them?
It's a little ambiguous, and at that point,
They turn to
I was
dust
looking at my
and
phone
go
a
away.
lot.
And she. So, oh, by the way, this movie has like more than 2 hours long.
Well, the thing about this movie, the one on the one that's on HBO Max,
HBO Max, you guys, you can all go home and watch it.
This is they actually added in for the theatrical cut. They took out 20 minutes of the movie.
I hope the 20 minutes is the rapey guys.
Yeah, and then they added in those 20 minutes back for the version that you see on HBO Max.
I did not
So
realize
this is
that.
actually with 20 minutes that they cut out for the theatritrailer version.
They could have chopped a lot.
Yeah, this felt for sure 20 minutes longer than it needed to be.
I feel like
It felt
the trailer was plenty long.
It felt 20 minutes longer than it needed to be 20 minutes in. Like there's throughout my notes, there's a log of how much movie is left. Right after the part where Ethan gets hit on the head with a coconut. It's an hour and 25 minutes in. And there's so much movie left.
There's a lot of high school hijinks that probably was added back in.
There's a lot of smooching. Like everybody is just smooch city, left, right, and sideways.
Was that what girls in the 80s wanted in their films?
Yes.
All right.
I wanted a costume. So, yeah, my whole life until I was probably like a teenager, I went as Superman for Halloween every year in those like plastic, very heavy vinyl plastic smocks that just like tied at the neck. And you had a mask that was like a paper plate. And I went as Superman every year. And then once there was a Supergirl, it was like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. Smooching and Supergirl and two women with an ambiguous relationship and fantastic clothes who live in an abandoned amusement park. What more is there to want? But so here's what we always do at the end. There's so much more we didn't even scratch the surface of this movie.
Yeah.
She gets the dodecahedron. She's like, I guess I have to go home to where my parents are maybe or maybe not dead. Please don't tell anyone you saw me.
Yeah, nobody knows who I am.
And Jimmy Olsen's like, we get it. Wink. Did you get it? Did they? I was so confused. So we always rank the movie on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 1 being obviously the worst. We've never given a movie a 1. All the way to a 10, which is perfection. It is Die Hard, which we gave a 10. And so on that scale of 1 omegahedron to 10 omegahedrons, this is a tough one. And I want you to be thinking of your numbers out there too, because we'll poll the audience. But what, Jared, is your rating?
Pi. 3.14 because it's not very good and it's unending.
Chef's kiss, Jared. That was beautiful. And what about for you, Nathan Blackwell?
Okay, so I'm gonna give it a 5 because although it makes no sense and it goes on for far too long. Yeah. It's one of those kind of abstract experiences under the right circumstances. Like if you're watching and It's So Bad, It's Good kind of movie. This has a lot of fun with those kind of goggles on.
It does, but don't you think like you'd have to make a supercut of this movie because it's not fun if you have to experience all like more than 2 hours of it. There's not enough.
It's one of you could put it on at a party.
You could.
And let it go in the background. And then if you see it in like 2-3 minute chunks, it says, there's no problem with this.
I love Supergirl. What are you talking about? Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. I do have fun facts. The scene where she comes out, Brooke Shields was supposed to be Supergirl, but they were like, she's too tall to be Supergirl. Peter Cook hated Faye Dunaway. Dolly Parton was offered the role of Selena and was like, I'm not a witch.
Mm-hmm. I can't be a witch.
Excuse me. And then this is the box office for 1984. Supergirl ranked 61. And then these are all other movies that we have done on our podcast. Dune was number 50, so Dune won, Jared. Red Dawn was number 19 that year. Number 1, of course, was Ghostbusters. Number 2, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Number 3, Gremlins, Karate Kid, and Police Academy. I give this movie a 5.25 for the exact same reason as you said, Nathan, because I think it is a fun, so bad it's good movie, but it's not enough of a so bad it's good movie. But I give it 0.25 because everybody in this movie was working so hard on their acting. They were really putting in the work. And like, even though Faye Dunaway made everyone hate her and was a terrible person, when she got to work, she was a professional.
She put in work.
And she put in the work. If you watch it, just like I'm telling you, a supercut of this movie would be gorgeous.
Or just only the Faye Dunaway part.
Only Faye Dunaway, I would sign up for. So the other thing that, I want to know, who out there ranked it lower than our lowest score? Did anyone want to give it less than 3.14? You gave it a 3? What do you think? You gave it a 2? Ouch. A 1. Even going down even as we speak. Did anyone give it higher than a 5.25? You give it an 8? Tell me, and I'll tell into the microphone what makes it an 8. That is an excellent point. Thank you so much. Yes, in infinite ways to tell infinite stories of Superman and Supergirl and all of their different ways of looking at it. And this is wholly original. It's not based on a source material. So that is a great point. 8, it's certainly unlike anything else. A wonderful point. All right. So that's our range. From 2 to 8 is our range. So we also always do a deep cut recommendation. So you guys know if you watch this movie on HBO Plus, it is going to mess up your HBO algorithm, and they're going to be like, "Oh, we thought
you
we
like
knew
Supergirl?"
you." But they're going to serve you up some other content. But we like to say, here's something that's maybe off that beaten path a little bit. Here's maybe something that's slightly different that you may enjoy if you enjoy Supergirl. Nathan, yours are always the best. What is your deep cut recommendation?
Well, I'm always fascinated by the behind the scenes of like, how did this movie get made? Like, what was just the mindset of the filmmakers or the people in charge of this? My recommendation, there's a documentary, I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube at this point, but on the Superman 1 and 2 DVDs, there's a documentary on the making of that experience. Because originally, Superman 1 and 2 was supposed to be one movie.
Yeah.
They broke it up into 2, but the documentary just kind of covers like people like so Alexander Salkind was the producer. The Salkinds bought the rights to Superman. And so they were independent producers making this. I wouldn't say that they had a good understanding of who Superman was or his powers, because as Richard Donner's kind of like kicked out of the picture, it gets more and more ridiculous. And this was just kind of a continuation of that whole process of it's kind of just fascinating because you've got these, a lot of times we just think of like these studios, but in a lot of these cases of like, let's say, the Superman movies or like the James Bond movies, these are independent individual producers who are then making it with larger studios, but they are in control of the rights.
And it is interesting to think about how something like this paved the way for something like the wonderful
like Warner Brothers had very little control over this at all. It was all these independent producers, the Salkinds, who had the rights to it.
Yeah. What about you, Jared?
So I was having a really hard time with my deep cut recommendation, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, man, Superman is probably one of the most valuable intellectual properties of all time. A lot of talented people worked really hard on this movie for it to be this bad. And then I remembered in high school I was playing Superman on the Nintendo 64, and it was the worst experience of my life. I think I made it maybe 10 or 15 minutes into it.
Oh, no.
And so I was looking up Superman 64 on the internet, and apparently it's arguably one of the worst video games ever created. So
you're going to recommend it to people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
you can
great.
watch somebody play through it on YouTube.
Oh, my God. Okay, well, I am rushing us, and I'm so sorry, but I don't want to hold things up for the group that's after us. My deep cut recommendation is the game Katamari Damacy, in which you roll around through a varying, ever-growing landscapes, gathering little bits and pieces of your environment, because that's what I thought of during the bulldozer scene is like, oh, it's real life Katamari Damacy. So that is my deep cut recommendation for you. Thank you so much, Tucson Comic Con, for coming out to see us. We appreciate you so much. Please come grab a sticker for our podcast. This is the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast. You can find us any place there are podcasts stored. We are at Most Excellent Pod on all of the social medias. You can find me at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in real life in downtown Mesa, and at Most Excellent Chrissy on all of the social medias. Nathan, everything's still on Squishy Studios?
Yeah, squishystudios.com.
Excellent. Nathan has a movie that's going to be coming out very soon, so keep your eye out for that. And Jared, what would you like to plug?
Make sure you drink water when you're hiking, please.
Yes, drink water while you're hiking. Thank you. We love you. Everybody give us a big cheer, and we'll be out of here. Yay!
Thank you, guys.
Ooh, that went so fast. All right, we got to
that
put
was
back the
fast.
microphone.